Dr. Mansingh, thank you for joining us on Living Your Best Life.
Thank you for having me.
So you have recently published an interesting article titled The Queen Bee. Please tell us a little bit more about that.
It came up in my PhD research as one of the findings, and I thought it was pertinent to make women aware. I'm working on research now just focused on the queen bee in South Africa. There are bits and pieces done as part of research. A directed research was done in 2011, but there's nothing specifically done very recently on the queen bee across sector, which I'm doing right now. I'm also trying to get a perspective of the queen bee herself in the research. So it's going to be interesting. It should be releasing by August this year, the findings of the research from a South African perspective. The article focused on the current literature that's out there, globally, and the impact on the queen, of the queen bee.
So let's define the queen bee.
So the queen bee is a woman who has reached a position of power. As she's there, she uses that power to subjugate any other woman that's in that path to developing to a space where she is, or to be in her circle at that level. So she doesn't allow, she will bully you, she will talk down to you, she'll get into her circle of the boys' network and do whatever she needs to actually push that woman down.
Why do you think there exists this queen bee?
Look, it's all about power, and right now there's a number of opportunities for women in the workplace, especially with the employment equity laws that are out. There's opportunities for women to grow and develop in the workplace. However, because the women are faced with so many challenges on their own, the queen bee will say, but I have done this journey all by myself. I have faced the challenges all by myself. So why on earth should I help another person get to where I am? And a person who's obviously going to be competition at my level. On the other hand, there's also, we sub-define the queen bee. We've got the princess bee, which is a woman that is in the position of power, but she will help you. She'll help you only if you are not within her domain or circle. So if you're in another company, in another department, she will say, okay, it's fine, I'll mentor you. As soon as you start coming closer to home, into her space, she starts pushing back. We have the phantom bee, who will recommend a man for a position or a vacancy over a woman. Irrespective if the woman is a stronger candidate, she'll say no to the woman and recommend the man for the position. And then we have something called the Cinderella complex, which is quite closely related to a very harsh case of bullying, in the sense that she will band together with, it's like the ugly stepsisters banding together and isolating Cinderella. So they do things like, a lot of harsh passage talk, nasty emails, just to isolate the person who they see now as competition.
So ideally then, when we talk about the queen bee, we're talking about someone or a lady in power that is threatened by other women.
Yes.
A fear that they may be better at her job?
Yes. I think that's one of the fears. But also, you must remember, the women who have gotten to the top, it hasn't been an easy journey, especially with the boys' network. The boys' network will, exactly how the queen bee puts up barriers to the other women, the boys' network have put up their fair share of barriers that this woman had to overcome to get into that space. This is the reason, because I've had people contact me about my research and say, don't judge me for being the queen bee when you haven't walked a day in my shoes. So, I'm trying to get also in the research a very holistic view and get the perspective of the queen bee as well.
Let's talk a little bit about how society has helped sculpt or create this queen bee.
Well, I think society plays, the biggest role in this. Because if we look at the way our realities are constructed, immediately a woman's pregnant, it's a girl, everything's pink. She's surrounded by, not just pink, she's surrounded by the girls' socialized toys, the dolls, the doll houses. As she grows up, she is in an environment, whether it's school, whether it's home, whether it's family or society, saying you need to become a teacher, you need to become a nurse, or you need to become a housewife, really. Just someone who needs to stay at home and look after the children, look after your husband. So that's how society creates gender in our boxes. So where the men are supposed to, the women are supposed to. So we actually creating weak women. We're not empowering them. So when we have one or two women who get to the positions, they have not only overcome, as I mentioned earlier, the boys' network, they have overcome societal norms of, breaking through barriers, especially women in STEM. They're breaking through barriers to get into fields of science and engineering, which have been so predominantly male-dominated.
A lot of what we've been talking about is very much a professional surrounding or professional environment. Do you believe that queen bees exist in your social circles?
Yes, no, definitely. I've been, although my focus is the workplace, queen bees exist in the social circles, exist on the school fields. There's books written on bullying at school in terms of the female students. So queen bees definitely does exist, and as I say, it stems from the fact that we construct our realities in such a way where we put genders into little boxes. We stop people from being people, from having a freedom of choice, from having that mutual respect and mutual inclusivity of people as human beings rather than genders or people of religion or sexuality. We lose sight of that when we start putting people in boxes.
So I'm going to ask you to give advice to two different people right now. So one to the queen bee herself, okay, and two to those women that are actually under the queen bee.
Okay, so the queen bee, the advice to the queen bee is, I understand your journey. I've spent 20 years in corporate, and I know how difficult and challenging and the amount of barriers that women have to undergo. But we need to remember that as a sisterhood, we've made so much strides in society, from the fact that we haven't been allowed to work, we haven't been allowed to vote, to be in a space that we are now globally. We need to take cognizance of that fact and try and bring the sisterhood into it. Try to mentor and develop people. It's pointless having programs like Bring a Girl Child to Work if we don't have committed women in leadership who are going to walk that talk every single day of the year. So that's to the queen bee. To the women that are victims of the queen bee, it's a very, very difficult, and I know it's emotionally draining. It's psychologically draining. The only advice I can give to you is you need to surround yourself by strong, positive people. People that are going to support you, people that are going to get through your days at work. There are a number of single mothers who have had to walk away from employment, to take lesser employment just to support their family. There are a number of women who are actually staying in employment and going through the abuse on a daily basis, purely to support their families. So we understand your plight, and this is why we're highlighting this research of such importance. You need to surround yourself really with positive people that are going to be supportive of you and your plight on a daily basis.
Thank you so much. This has been extremely enlightening.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.